Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Si necesita la traducción, la intérprete se llama Ana y está aquí en la mesa al fondo. Se pueden ver con ella si necesita traducción en español. Welcome everybody to Collaborative Innovation for Food Justice in the Silicon Valley. We are super excited about the panel we have planned for today. This is a collaborative effort from multiple organizations. I'm Chris Bacon. I'm the chair of the Department of Environmental Studies and Sciences, and I'm the lead for the Environmental Justice and Common Good Initiative's Climate and Food Justice Program. But most importantly, we're going to be learning about Veggielution and an exciting project that we have that recently received funding from the County of Santa Clara. For all the students that are in the Environmental Studies and Sciences Colloquium, thank you. We'll usually be meeting in our classroom, but thank you for coming for this special space for our kickoff event. You guys will have questions that you'll be writing down on paper and then turning them in this nice little yellow envelope, which I'll have there on the registration table at the end of the class. We'll end at 12:50. But you're also more than welcome to stay for food and networking for all those that are here for the next 25 minutes. Students, you guys can ask your questions if you want. We encourage you to, but it's not mandatory. As the Environmental Studies and Sciences coordinator for the Colloquium series, I want to point out our future seminars that we have scheduled for the rest of the quarter. So next up on April 24th, Jocelyn Dubin, just an amazing food system change agent, and also the lead nutritionist for the County of Santa Clara. She'll be talking about research into practice, and she'll actually be kind of building on some of the work we're doing today, talking about the county's food systems work plan, which is, I think, pretty innovative and somewhat understudied and developed. Then we'll have a couple other speakers that you can see up there, and we encourage you to come out and join us for any of those activities. I also want to point out that the Environmental Justice and Common Good Initiative has a number of events this quarter. Those include another information session, particularly for faculty and staff, that will be held later this week from 11 to 2 p.m. There's also a major event on April 18th in the Santa Clara University Recital Hall at 7 o'clock. That's open to the public, so folks here from communities are more than welcome to attend. And I think there's going to be on May 30th an event that Ira Stewart Fry is coordinating on emerging contaminants and drinking water serving California tribes. So you're welcome to join us for any of those events. Again, our schedule for today is going to be pretty straightforward. Introductions, presentation. We have our featured guest from Veggielution, including an alumni who's now with Veggielution, and then panel discussion, and then time for tamales and networking. We have vegetarian tamales from Chicken Tamales that will be served, also some drinks, local entrepreneur, and so you're welcome to stay then from 12:50 to 1:15. Students, if you guys have another class, I understand, but you're also welcome to stay and network. This is a good opportunity to meet community members and other folks in this area. So that's pretty much all you're going to hear from me right now. The last piece I'll say is a big part of what we're doing is we're kicking off a new project. Together in Veggielution led a proposal to the county for their new food systems resilience program. And we partnered with them at Santa Clara University's Environmental Justice and Common Good Initiative to develop a project to support more equitable and resilient regional food economy, particularly in East San Jose. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that as well. So we want to thank the county for supporting this. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Fernando, who is our fearless moderator and experienced food justice organizer in the South Bay. He's going to keep us all on track, and you'll be only hearing from me briefly during a short section of the panel following up. So thank you once again, and welcome to Santa Clara University.
Thank you, Professor Bacon. Well, we want to start this event. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to start this event with a land acknowledgement, so please follow me on this. We pause to acknowledge that Santa Clara University sits on the land of Ohlone and on the Muwekma Ohlone people, who trace their ancestry through the Mission Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose. We remember their connection to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to live, work, and learn and pray in their traditional homeland. Let's take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all Olone people, past and present. Thank you for that moment of silence. Let's start with this panel. I will start introducing the panel. I'm pretty sure some of these faces will be familiar for you. We already introduced one of the students from here that is working with us. I'm talking about Mr. Antonio Amore Rojas, who is the co-op manager at Veggielution. Please give an applause for Antonio. It's his first time coming back to the college and be a part of a panel, so kudos for you. Also, well, another famous person on this university, Chris Bacon, was already introduced. Please give an applause for Chris. And not applause for Chris because it's Chris. It's because all his work and intention and passion about food justice. That is, I think, what we need to recognize and say thank you, Chris, for your work. Not just your work, but also your whole family is involved in this, so thank you. We're going to move on in the panel. I would like to introduce, it's a great gardener. She has the green thumb, and she loves plants. But right now, she's working with us in Veggielution. She is the program director. I'm talking about Claudia Damiani Fontana. Please give an applause for Claudia. Yeah, when you see panels, you don't see this kind of introduction. I have a different style. And the last but not the least, one of the most important leaders in our team, Emily Schwing. He's the acting executive director of Veggielution. She has been with us more than 10 years in this organization. And she started as a young lady in Veggielution. I'm talking about you start in AmeriCorp, and now is the acting executive director. So she went through the whole ladder. No? So give an applause for Emily for her leadership. All right, looks like I broke the ice with this introduction. So we can move into the presentation. Emily, it's your turn.
All right, well, welcome everybody. But first, also, did you introduce yourself?
No. You never introduce yourself. You wait for somebody to introduce you.
So this is Fernando Fernandez. He is Veggielution's interim policy director and is as Chris said, renowned social justice, food justice organizer in the South Bay. So thank you everybody for being here. My name's Emily Schwing. I'm going to kind of do a brief overview of the Santa Clara County Food System Work Plan and then dive into a little bit more about Veggielution, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues to go a little bit deeper into the project and program that we'll be talking about today. So first off, who has read the Santa Clara County Food System Work Plan? Cool. All right, so like 6 people, great. So if you haven't read it, it's not that long. I'm sure you all read much longer papers for class. So check it out. It's on the Santa Clara County website. But this was developed actually during 2020, and it was published in 2021 in lieu of COVID. And with all of the issues that we saw arise around food access, the need for a stronger local food system to get food to those most vulnerable in our community, and also around climate resiliency and how are we supporting our local regional agriculture here in the county. And so the 4 main areas are on equity and justice, resilience, food sovereignty, ecological sustainability, and climate mitigations. And so I need to press the button. And so there's seven goals in total. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will highlight 2 of the goals that actually we are focusing on for our project here. And the first is building a strong regional economy where communities and individuals prosper. And then the other goal is goal number 7, which is around build a constituency for a strong regional food system by increasing food and agricultural education. So these are our 2 goals that we highlight in our project, and we'll talk about, and you'll see kind of themes come up as we go through this. So first for goal number 4, build a strong regional food economy where communities and individuals prosper. And the focus of this is really on strengthening the regional food economy and encouraging equitable economic development by reducing barriers to food entrepreneurs, supporting cooperatives, and investing in regional food economies, financial and physical infrastructure. And so this is one of our goals at Veggielution. I'll talk a little bit about that. But this is a real focus for us during this project. And then goal number 7, around education. And then specifically, we're honored here today to be able to partner with Chris and Santa Clara University and really leveraging the university to help us, not only do the direct service that Veggielution is offering, but do the research and evaluation piece and evaluate this goal, but also evaluate other aspects of our food system, specifically related to cooperative work. Okay, so we're going to play a quick video before I jump in. And so this is a video that our team put together, basically describing how Veggielution is a kind of small version of a food system. So we talk about all the different components of food system work at Veggielution, and we run different sizes of programs that all touch upon the different goals of food system work. So, and this is on our YouTube, so if you want to watch it again.
A food system is a network of interconnected processes and the people behind these processes that grow food and get it to your fork. The food system is shaped by politics, economics, cultures, and the natural environment itself. The best food systems produce enough healthful food for all community members. Healthy food systems also create financial opportunities for businesses, offer gainful employment to individuals, and sustain the environment that we all share.
Food cultivation. In order for people and animals to be able to eat, food has to be grown or raised. Harvesting and saving seeds to grow at a later time is one way food is cultivated.
Food production. Plant and animal foods come from all over the world. Depending on the food, it may have been cultivated in a desert, on a prairie, in the ocean, in someone's backyard, or on an urban farm. Food access. If food is located close to the places where people live, work, play, and learn, it is more likely to be eaten. Access to food is not a guarantee. Access to healthy food presents a big challenge for many communities.
Food processing. Plant and animal foods are often changed in some way before we eat them. Sometimes a combination of plants and animals are processed together to make food products.
Food distribution. There is enough food produced on planet Earth to feed every human being in the world. However, food is not distributed equally throughout the world. Those with more money to buy food tend to eat more of the food available on our planet. Growing our food helps to close the gap between those who have less access to food and those who have more access to food.
Food affordability. It is one thing for food to exist close to where people live, work, play, and learn. It is another thing for that food to be affordable to those who want to eat it. Food is often sold at prices far greater than what many people can afford. Healthy food is often priced higher than less healthy food. Food consumption. The amount of food a person eats in a day varies by age, by access to food, by food affordability, and by lifestyle. We eat what we can grow, raise, buy, or be given. We eat according to cultural traditions, income, and lifestyle.
Food waste disposal. Californians throw away 6 million tons of food scraps every year. These food scraps account for 13% of the trash in California landfills. Many of these food scraps could be composted or eaten by people or animals in need. California Bill 1383 requires that California homes and businesses reduce organic food waste and recover edible food. This bill is in effect now and will expand in 2024.
A healthy food system not only results in good food for people to nourish their bodies, but also a new sense of community well-being. With a healthy food system, a community can decide when, how, and where to grow food, have thriving local businesses to cultivate, harvest, distribute, cook, and sell that food, and sustainable ways to use the food scraps to feed our soil. A healthy food system connects people to one another across culture, age, and language to create a happy, well-nourished society.
Okay, cool. So our team put that together to just kind of give a better overview. We realized a lot of our programming, like I said, are the different components of what makes up a food system. And so for those of you who don't know Veggielution, I want to just do a quick overview of our work. So Veggielution, our mission is that we connect people from diverse backgrounds through food and farming to build community in East San Jose. And specifically in East San Jose, I want to give a little bit of background. So Veggielution primarily serves East San Jose, a diverse, underinvested community whose residents have for generations generated wealth for Silicon Valley, even while being subjected to systematic racism, suppression, and economic inequities. But despite facing all of these challenges, Mayfair is a vibrant neighborhood rich in cultural and culinary traditions categorized by diverse entrepreneurial and informal food businesses. And then these are our main three strategies. How we operate our work is around economic mobility, sustainable agriculture, and policy change. So we're going to talk a little bit today about one of our programs that's focused on economic mobility, but we really see these three strategies flowing through all of our programs and how we approach all of our work. And then just a brief overview. These are some of our major partners that we work with for our programming, for policy, for just general partnership, for community engagement work. So I wanted to put them up there and specifically call out Veggielution. We're part of two collectives, a collective of agencies on the east side called the Si Se Puede Collective, and then also a network of urban ag organizations, and specifically actually the Forge is part of that group. So we work with the Forge Garden here on campus around urban ag programs, initiatives, and policy efforts. So I'm going to pass it over to Claudia.
Thank you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Eastside Grown and how this program came to be. We will be talking about an evolution that started in 2015 and how we have been observing like the attitudes in the community and how we have changed our program in response to that. So to start, I want to say that the Eastside Grown program is, instead of serving the community and providing just services and providing tools, is really looking for building together and co-create, co-evaluate, respond to the community as we recognize that our community members are leaders. And you can see like there's this nice timeline. We started in 2015 with Cocina. Cocina is a cooking class in Spanish that we host every first Saturday at the farm. We noticed that 30% of people coming to Cocina were new people. They participated just for that event. They learned about Veggielution, and after that, many of them engaged and returned to the farm to many other activities. 70% of the people participating in Cocina were people that already took advantage of the farm stand. They took their kids to the youth garden. They volunteered at the farm. And so we observed that there was a real demand for healthy cooking and hands-on experience. In 2016, we launched the Homegrown Talent Program. That year, we had 12 people in a cohort. What was our first experience working with the Si Se Puede Collective in this type of setting. And our goal was to build this pipeline for talented people to strengthen their community and bring entrepreneurship and conversations about food system. We were focused on skill building and practice on the farm stand. In 2017 and 2018, there are like similar strategies. We were testing the waters with street food vending. This was in the context of passing the SB 946 that decriminalized street food vending. Our program participants were able to have like over 100 hours of hands-on experience doing things like serving the public and hospitality, learning about point of sale and things like that. All this helped us to where we are now. Right now we have a program called Jobs to Grow that has like adopted like the Eastside Grown, and we run it with all the Si Se Puede Collective agencies. We keep the same goal, that is support local entrepreneurs and lift families out of poverty. At the same time, fostering dynamic leaders. We started in 2021 with 13 classes, 13 sessions, and right now we host more than 30. And this passing from 13 to 30 has been just observing the community, recognizing their needs and adapting to what they want to do. We were able last year, this was a big deal. We were able to inject $100,000 to 17 different local businesses. One of them is Chicken Tamales. That will be serving us delicious vegetarian tamales today. And we provided practice opportunities. We use Cocina, this cooking class, as a setting for practicing safety food manager skills. And we launched several campaigns for advocacy to promote changes in the policies, in the local policies. Last year, 16 people of our program participants were able to engage in different campaigns. Next. Okay. So this is how our program looks like now. We have different goals. One of them is connect food entrepreneurs with each other. To achieve this goal, we work in cohorts of 20 people. They are experts in their own experience, and we actually carry that message from the beginning to the end. We use popular education in the way how we teach, and everyone gets to share. The workshops are really interesting, are very dynamic. Everyone gets a moment to talk, and sometimes the challenge is to okay, let's go back to the goal of the meeting. But it's really participatory. We also connect the entrepreneurs with infrastructure and resources, and we do this working with local experts in a collaborative way. So we establish partnerships with different community-based organizations, and at the end of our program, we host a resource fair, and it's a gentle way to connect people to resources that they may need to continue their journey as entrepreneurs. And finally, we do all this knowledge building based on traditions and knowledge. So this goes from the recipe, I'm going to start my business using the recipe from my grandmother, to the practices and values, and also the ingredients and how we get to those ingredients. So we talk about small farms, what is the importance of working with small farms, and what is the importance of working with local produce. And very interesting conversations come out of that. During this whole process, we saw a lot of very dynamic people, and 10 of them start working on one co-op. For many reasons, that one co-op turned out to be 2 co-ops, and 10 program participants or 10 program graduates are engaging in these 2 companies. They both have different business proposals. One is traditional Mexican food. The other one is vegan Mexican food. And throughout the years, we have been working in connecting them with different resources and refer them to potential clients. Most recently, one of the co-ops catered during the Women's Leadership and Policy Summit, hosted by County Supervisor Cindy Chavez, and they were able to serve food for 800 people, which was a really great accomplishment for them. And I'm going to pass it to Antonio.
Thank you, Claudia. Hi, I'm Antonio. I'm the Cooperative Development Manager. I'm also a Santa Clara grad. I was a double major in Business Management and Environmental Studies. It is actually kind of crazy for me to be here because I was kind of here actually a year ago hosting the Youth Climate Summit when I was working for Chris's lab. Actually, some of the people that I work with are in the back there as the lab assistants, so big shout out to them, doing good work. But yeah, the Cooperative Development Program is kind of the next step, for EG, which is what Claudia was just talking about. Yeah, but before I go into anything, I actually wanted to ask if anybody in the room knows what a cooperative is, maybe if they can define a cooperative. Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. In general, the word cooperative is more like an adjective. You can connect it to a lot of different things. So there's actually housing cooperatives where the people who live in a building all collectively own the building together, which is pretty cool. But the co-op that we're working with is it's a worker cooperative. So essentially, it's a business, and the most important part of it is that the business is owned by the workers. There's actually also producer co-ops, so like farms, and there's also consumer co-ops like REI, where the clients own the business. But what we care about mostly is the worker co-ops. And I mean, the fact that the workers are the owners is what fundamentally changes the nature of the business, because, you know, in any business, the people who make the decisions about it are the owners. And so when the owners are the workers, then they start to make decisions that are actually a lot more in their self-interest as workers as well as their community. And so, you know, it's a very democratically structured business, you know, one worker, one vote. And so the program that we're trying to build to kind of be the second part of Eastside Grown is, the second part of Eastside Grown is a small business incubator that will hopefully, you know, inspire everyone in it to build, create a worker cooperative. So how are we going to do it? I'm glad you asked. So what is the program? It's a pilot that's aiming to launch a successful co-op within the next year and a half, 2 years. Program goals: sharing the co-op and catering fundamentals with community program participants. Essentially, what we're going to do is that we're going to have 12 people who have graduated from our previous program apply into this program so that they can learn about co-ops and about catering. And eventually, they're going to make group proposals, and then we're going to select one of them and actually fund that one and incubate it for a year and a half to kind of learn how to start a business. And I don't know if ensure their success, but I really try as much as we can to make them successful. Yeah, the goal would be having $200,000 in revenue in 1.5 years, and we would be able to use that experience to create the baseline of our future small business incubation program that all of our graduates could then apply to get funding using their business plan. So the program, it has 3 phases. The first phase is the phase that I was just telling you guys about, the course. So we're actually going to have really detailed workshops that happen once or twice a week. These include stuff like menu development, how to develop governance for your cooperative, because governance structures are essentially the core of a co-op, since the responsibility has to be redistributed very equally within the organization. So that part is super important. We're going to teach them a lot about the handling of the permits for catering, since it'll be a lot more hands-on than the previous course. And yeah, I think the most important part is going to be the proposal that they're going to make at the end. But anyway, I'll go into that a little later. Then we're going to go into phase 2, which is the co-op incubation, which is the group that we select is actually going to go, you know, to the State Department, legally create an LLC with everybody's name on it. Then we're going to go to the city, get our business permit. Yeah, just really create a business. Work with some consultants to create that governance structure so that they understand it. Work on creating an operating agreement, which is essentially like the constitution of a co-op. Make sure that everybody understands what's you know in the operating agreement and has participates in creating it. And then phase 3, we're actually going to launch the co-op. So the co-op is going to be open for business. You know, catering needs, whatever you need, please get my business card after, because I'm going to have a really great co-op in the next couple months that's going to make some delicious food. And yeah, in the next year and a half, we're going to essentially get clients for this co-op and build it out like in real time as it's making money and getting contracts through our various contacts. So yeah, so that's those are the workshops that we're going to have. Governance, finances. Oh my gosh, finances is so important. We want everybody in the co-op to be able to access the finances and understand them completely, even if like one person is more in charge of like managing them. Pricing is actually something that our community kind of struggles with a lot. You know, just developing that pricing structure and learning what the value of their own labor is and charging a fair price for the value that they're delivering. Yeah, just I'm so excited for this. Phase 2, yeah, co-op incubation, developing the menu. That part is actually, I'm so excited about that because it's very interconnected with the members of the co-op and what kind of food that they want to serve, you know, like where they're coming from, their experiences with food. And creating their brand. I actually made this slide, and I'm having a lot of fun with the Canva stuff, so I'm learning a lot about the branding and And I think that part's going to be really cool, especially hearing about how they want their brand to be represented, especially with their food and the cultural relevance of the food. And yeah, the co-op launch, like I was saying, get business, get out there, make some money, understand, have everybody get that first-hand experience of what it's like to be at an event like this one, kind of like Irving, serving food, going out to get the ingredients, getting the commercial kitchen and cooking it, all of that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the overview of the co-op program. There's probably a lot more that we haven't discovered yet, but we'll get there. But yeah, thank you. Go to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Antonio. It's just terrific to see from the perspective of a professor, like somebody who was in the lab group doing all this kind of work and, had different options, somebody who was, environmental studies, which might lead you down a path like this, but also management, right? And so while some friends were going off to work for big accounting firms and stuff, which is fine, but he also made the choice to do some community work and kind of integrate both those majors with Veggielution. I'm just going to talk briefly about some of our role in this project and kind of our broader approach. Our three main strategies are community-based participatory action research that really does what we're trying to do here. It's easier said than done, where we partner with an organization and we co-develop a research agenda together to address some of the pressing needs of the community, right? And so Veggielution is a pretty community-based organization, the way I see it, and we have been partnering for a number of years, but particularly in this project, that's kind of the root of this. And we'll help with some of the research design and some of the data analysis, but all together, they're going to be directly involved in the research. I mean, just before we started here, Claudia was talking about qualitative data analysis software, so it's not like these guys research is not foreign to them. Second main strategy is agroecology, which is looking for it's a theory, it's really kind of a scientific approach, a movement, worldwide movement, and a demand for more just and sustainable food systems, as well as a practice, and the important practice and the knowledge that comes from the work that farmers do every day, right? So it's this integrated approach in that sense, and then experiential education. You see some of our former and current student research assistants involved up there. Let's see in our next slide. Yeah, we've been through so much in the last 4 years. I was just thinking about what to talk about in a couple minutes here, and it's just reminding us, wow, COVID unveiled the humongous inequalities in our global food system that many of us that were involved in this from a farming perspective or a consumer perspective or just a resident of Eastside San Jose or sometimes a student here on campus were well aware of through our lived experiences in our daily lives. But just to go zeroing in on those early days of 2020. 2020, March 6, 2020, on campus through the Environmental Justice and Common Good Initiative, we actually hosted a workshop called the South Bay Food Justice Workshop because we were thinking about how do we thicken up these collaborations in the South Bay. Co-organized, I remember with Emily, all kinds of Zoom calls, planning calls, Lucy Diekman from UC Extension, Andy Olive from Fresh Approach, and a bunch of other organizations. We had this get together, 75 people from about 25 different organizations, government, nonprofit agencies, and look at the next date, March 12th. The first lockdown order in the United States was March 12th. That's 6 days after that workshop. I can't explain why it happened that way, right? But it was amazing for us as a learning community because all of a sudden we had built these relationships from this workshop. We're getting on Zoom calls with the directors of Second Harvest Food Bank that are seeing their numbers go from like 200,000 people a month in the Silicon Valley, which is just shocking if you think about that many people needing to visit a food pantry, to like 500,000 people. The huge needs that happen, it really created this learning community, right? And you can see from the data up there, if you can squint hard enough, they saw the number of calls and requests for food assistance between March and June of 2020 increased by 600%, right? There's a general food crisis and then there's an acute food crisis. That's an acute food crisis that we saw at those moments, right? CalFresh applications were up by 100% and the pounds of food served just by Second Harvest, there's other sources that are serving, were up by over 50%. And a lot of that continued in the second between, if you look at the next series there, by February, right? How do people respond in these situations? Well, people were doing what they can. I mean, the Forge Garden was distributing some fresh produce boxes. A lot of people, because they were in their house, were distributing food in these produce boxes. Farmers were making all kinds of sacrifices. We haven't even close to document the kind of work that was being done. And it's probably never gonna be fully documented, but thank your farmer, right? I mean, remember that. On a national scale, they rolled out a $5 billion massive approach, the Farmers to Family program, which was sending boxes of food across the country supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It did help alleviate some food insecurity SNAP probably made a bigger difference, but they had a lot of requirements built into it. And we'll do a little bit of a comparative analysis so we can see what a food justice approach to addressing this emergency food assistance might look like. Then, on top of this, we had August through September, we had the Bay Area wildfires, right? So now we are in a situation of one hazard overlapping on another, which is not uncommon for many of us that have worked in Central America and other places around the world, but we're a little less used to that Africa. We're a little less used to that here in California. But all of a sudden, we got overlapping hazards disrupting our food systems, affecting our lives, how we breathe, how we move in so many different ways, right? People responded, and I think one way response that we were already talking about is the government started to realize there was a lack of coordination to support resiliency across the area, and this county of Santa Clara partnered with UC Extension to write the county food systems work plan. Students, you guys will get a chance to read about this more for next week, and we also made a little fact sheet, and you can turn it over, it's available in Spanish, to help get the word out about this. Quick assessment of what a food justice response might look like. So USDA Farmers to Families, they were required at one point, I think there was like cooked meat that was required to be in those boxes, which is kind of surprising given like you're packing vegetables and meats together, not only from dietary preference from some people's strategy, but also just the logistics of it. It made a difference, not going to deny it, but a lot of it was run through the major distributors like UNFI, Cisco, the big distributors were taking food from wherever they could get it and distributing it on a mass scale. We did something very different across here in the South Bay, and other places did it too, but I think it was kind of partially incubated through the South Bay Collaborative. Veggielution distributed, I think, hundreds of thousands of boxes of fresh produce to low-income communities in need, high-quality fresh produce produced by local farmers, many of which had lost their market shares to restaurants and other areas at the time. And they were sourcing, so here's where you see some of the justice, on two ends, right? They're distributing it to communities in need in a just and equitable way, and then they're sourcing from BIPOC-owned farm, female-owned farms. Many of these farms are organic. If we compare those farms on that table, that list from what the list is like across the state of California, across the U.S., it's incredibly much more equitable if you see the sourcing patterns that you see. So more equitable and just in the sourcing, paying a fair price, and also more equitable and just in the distribution. Of course, it's also reliant on government assistance, but this was a need at the time. Just to add to, I think you guys did a great job covering this, but this is a paper I did a couple years ago with my colleague Greg Baker. You can see in the area, the sort of dark area at the intersection East San Jose, those are poverty rates, 40 to 70% of 200% of the federal poverty rate in some parts of East San Jose, right? So we know that there's a need there, right, in terms of food assistance, but I think when we were planning this presentation, you're like, we can talk about the data or the narrative, right? The rich history of East San Jose, the cultural resilience, the beauty, the creativity, and all the work that's been happening in organizing, which just really, even to some extent, the partnership with Veggielution builds upon that organizing history that came before us. So our role in this particular project, on phase one, we're developing a values-based procurement strategy and a study to help link local food justice initiatives and values-based procurement opportunities for the co-op to the markets that are out there, right? So is there a possibility with the county? What about Santa Clara University? What does our sourcing pattern look like? We'll also support some developing and monitoring evaluations, some public education strategies around the Santa Clara County Food System Work Plan. And in phase two, we want to help, and I'm going to partner with a colleague, CJ Gavey, who we're roping into this project a little bit, who's data analysis specialist and a GIS wizard, help think about a data dashboard and some maps for East San Jose analysis. We're going to do some early results dissemination, and we're going to do an urban ecology short course. So stay tuned for that. We'd love to feature local case studies and experiences. And phase three, we're going to look back through interviews with folks and think about some of the most significant changes that people have lived through, do some more data analysis and results dissemination. And as I wrap up in my last minute here, I just want to say there are lots of challenges to this. It's easier said, all of these things, and done. Starting a co-op is a hard endeavor. So, and it's not, success is not guaranteed. Each of these efforts at justice themselves are always striving for an ideal, and there's inconsistencies and challenges that we faced along the way. So it's important for us to be self-reflexive as we engage in these approaches. There'll be other challenges that, just thinking about the requirements for procurement and all of those that arise, the volume requirements, the consistency requirements, all the rest of that. But I believe that through collaboration And this type of collaboration that is rooted in basic needs and the right of people to healthy, accessible food. Actually, California has a human right to food. I don't know if people realize that, just like we have a human right to water in the state, which is it's awesome. What does it look like to make this happen in practice and to build out this meaning of food sovereignty? And if there's one place I'm excited to be doing it, it'd be here in East San Jose, where Cesar Chavez spent some important part of his youth in organizing. And of course, together with Dolores Huerta, whose birthday is today, formed the United Farm Workers, which inspires a good part of this work. And so that last picture is purposely left blank to see who's going to be filling into those footsteps coming forward. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the panelists for the presentation. And as you can see in this slide, in the third area of the picture, there's nobody. Maybe that is you. Maybe in the future, we will see your face there. That is the invitation that we are trying to share in these activities and all outreach that we do. So let's move into the questions. I hope everyone is excited and ready with your questions. I will open the panel with some questions to warm up, and then please be ready for your questions. So my first question, I don't want to choose a person, so who feel prepared for respond this, is really hard question, so get ready. What impact do food cooperatives have on local economies, particularly in terms of supporting local farmers and producers? What is your thoughts or opinion about that?
Cool, I can take this one for sure. Well, I think that one of the reasons that we are choosing the cooperative model and that, like so many resources across the state, and like with the county, they're really choosing to invest in the cooperative model is because of, two important things that like cooperatives just inherently like drive a lot more investment into the local community just because, the profit isn't distributed to some stakeholder that's like a hedge fund or some investor out there who doesn't care about the success of the enterprise unless it makes returns for them. It's invested right back into the owners, which, like I said, are the workers, right? And so when they get a bonus, when they get more money from their successful co-op, they're going to go out and spend it where they live, in their community, right? And so just inherently, the profits are just going to be redistributed right back into the community where they were created, right? Number two is that every cooperative across the country has to, not has to, but they follow 7 cooperative principles, and one of those principles is that co-ops support co-ops. And so in every area where we can, as a co-op, the future co-op is going to try to consume services from other co-ops. So we'll try to get legal advice from a lawyer co-op or our accounting from an accountant co-op. These are just things that are coming off my mind. But one of the things that we're actually already working on for this co-op is to source our produce from agricultural co-ops. An agricultural co-op that we met recently, 7 organic farms, which are in Monterey County and Santa Cruz County. I've actually met with them multiple times, and we're trying to develop that relationship. And so inherently, the co-op is going to try to source whatever they need from other co-ops. And since it's also community-based, it's going to be local co-ops. So, yeah, it just inherently puts a lot more money back into the community than the traditional business.
Thank you, Antonio. One more question, and then we move to your questions. We live in a society where individual is the main character in this movie, if we are in a movie. We have this individualistic mindset. How that cultural construction of this individual will have a challenge with this idea of being a cooperative. What is the cultural challenge of having a cooperative in America? If somebody have that response. We just are sharing thoughts.
So we'll be working with mostly Latinos, and that's a very important cultural component for us, like the family, the culture, the ability not just to progress ourselves, but also bring progress to our community through our work. And yeah, I think that is one of the components. Like it is challenging because I think the process of making decisions together is going to be like the the process where we have to meet there. And that is the importance of all the trainings that Antonio will be hosting of how to make those decisions together. But I think there is a natural or like cultural predisposition to share the risk in a way. Also to have like this coming to like all minds together to bring ideas and also to build on our experiences.
Can I add a little bit? Yes. I would just say that I agree with you that the main character in the main movie is the individualist, but also there's a long history of cooperation since early human society, right? Just like there's a history of some types of competition sometimes, there's a deep and long history of cooperation. And so we can celebrate and enact that history and remake it and live it, this history of cooperation, just as well if we remember how to do it and support each other in the process.
We still have time for one more question, or would you like to we move into the audience? What the panel think? Audience? All right, let's, everyone have questions ready in their paper. We're gonna read it.
They can decide if they want to ask it.
Ooh, okay, I like that. So it's okay, Chris, if I go to, so please raise your hand if you have a question. This is an interactive panel. What is your name and for who is your question?
My name is Olivia. My question is kind of about, because obviously it seems like you guys have great strategies to combat food insecurity and inequality. I guess what I'm wondering, like, why hasn't this been done successfully on like a state or policy level within like the government?
Do you have a person who would like to respond, or everyone who feels? Anyone. Okay. Thank you.
Just to repeat, so you're asking why hasn't we have strategies at this level, but why hasn't it maybe been implemented at a state level? So I think we're working towards it. I would say at the state of California, the CDFA, so California Department of Food and Agriculture, they're working towards. They have a lot of opportunities at the state level for funding around food hubs, around farm to school, around like regional food system partnerships. So there are I would say funding opportunities at a state level that are trying to encourage smaller level opportunities. And then I'm gonna call out the county of Santa Clara, where we just established a new position, a food system manager position here at the county, and so that shows that there is now an investment within our county on this food system work. And I think that's just to the point of like underrepresentation of this type of work in government departments. Food is generally kind of thrown between public health, social services. Other, sometimes Office of Sustainability handles like agriculture, and so hasn't been a real focus on food system work, and so we see that changing with investment at the state and now at the county level.
And I'll just build on that from a little bit of a political economy perspective, which is a lot of times the government doesn't do something unless they have to, or they respond to the loudest voice in the room, right? And so sometimes the loudest voice in the room when it comes to food systems are those that put up the lobbying dollars, right? So people talk about the influence of the meat industry in the last climate change meetings that happened COP28, right? And so those are now, if there's when we saw the crisis, I think it's not a coincidence, and I'm glad we have this county food systems plan, but it's not a coincidence that it happened in the middle of that massive crisis of food security during COVID. I mean, people were worried about, actually, many people that had not experienced food insecurity before were worried about accessing enough food. And so I think the demand was there. And luckily, there was a creative group of community-based groups that stepped up that helped push. And this is a lot of people, a lot of policy change is not that exciting work. For all the students, like doing those policy briefs is good. But a lot of times it's a long meeting, late into the evening. Same for co-op meetings, right? They're not always that fun, right? But that's sometimes what democracy and making change looks like. And you got to be willing to put the stamina and the effort in to make those changes that could lead to these shifts.
I want to talk a little bit about co-ops. When I started working with Veggielution, one of the things in my to-do list was to figure out this co-op thing. And after I scratched my head for a little bit, I learned about different resources, and I took a class. And one of the things I learned is how predominant co-ops are in the economic development of this country, and how little their stories are told. So there are like over 30,000 co-ops in the United States, and they generate over 2 million jobs. And there are $660 billion generated yearly. And during the times of crisis like the COVID-19, many businesses closed, and the ratio at which co-ops were closing was much slower, because co-ops help co-ops, and they decided to, okay, we are going to make less money, but we are not going to close the business. So it's a very resilient model, and I don't know why the stories are not told. We're going to go to a conference to learn more about that.
Questions from the audience? On the other side, I see two hands. I will go here and then to you. Your name and your question, please.
Hi, my name is Will, and my question is basically, is there any preparation like being taught to the newly forming co-ops, like in the scenario that there's more like emergency need from the community for food, like you were talking about like the Veggielution pilot and like all of the like kind of like business skills being taught, but are there also like, you know, like hypothetical scenarios being taught, like if there's some like emergency community need, like with what happened when like COVID started and stuff like that?
So honestly, I don't think I feel like that's more of a we'll cross that bridge when we get to it question. A co-op can't really respond to an emergency unless it exists and it's like stable, you know, but honestly, that's a very solid point. And I think that within the co-op structure, like inherently, there is that community component. And so whenever, well, not whenever, but hopefully we don't have to, but if there is a situation like that in the community, the co-op being, you know, composed mostly of community members and having that principle of giving back to the community would be pretty prepared for responding to an emergency like that. But it's a good, I thank you for planting that seed in my head, because then when we're a little bit down the line, maybe a year into incubation, we can have a conversation about that and see how the co-op wants to implement that within their structure.
And I'll add, I think, yes, because we don't know what that next emergency is. But Veggielution, we do have the experience within our own organization of having to pivot and having built those partnerships, built those relationships. So if it is some another major emergency where it requires a rethinking of our food system, we have that capability on our team and on our within our capacity that hopefully we're able to help train up how many of our cohorts we have, cooperatives we have. But I think in our partnerships, I think as Veggielution, we are a very strongly connected relationship organization. And so to be able to also support those cooperatives through our relationships and partnerships with whatever that emergency is, I think is key for us. Yeah.
So also the co-op we're going to launch, like Antonio is very focused on the food aspect of it, but there is also a promotoras aspect. So it's like community educators that will, and at the beginning will teach us how to cook healthy meals, but that is going back to Emily's point that the community and the experience that we have is like we are able to pivot. So building that leadership and having that as a kind of like another component of the business will help us in case of an emergency, in case we need to pivot, we'll have the social capital.
Yeah, I'll just add just briefly. I think it's a great question to point out because co-ops, I think when I look at the history of co-ops, were really formed around mutual aid. And so that's why they respond good. But you don't need to have a legally recognized co-op to do mutual aid. There was a lot of informal mutual aid. Maybe you guys Venmo'd your friend or family member's money during COVID, or even still, or you share some meal points at the end of the quarter because somebody's short, right? Those are all forms of mutual aid. And so it might make sense, and I think this is a risk I've seen in co-op development, both in Central America and Nicaragua. I've worked for a long time, and here is like a lot of times there's a strong business development aspect of co-op, and it makes sense. You got to have a functioning business to keep the co-op financially functional. But there's also a social purpose, right? And they're rooted in mutual aid. So maybe it makes sense to have a module that's just reminding themselves of their capacity for mutual aid and support, particularly during an emergency, so we don't lose that strength that really comes with the community.
Thank you. Your name and your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for just having this session and talking about food sustainability. I'm Imelda Rodriguez. I'm coming from Nuestra Casa, a nonprofit in East Palo Alto. This question is targeted for Professor Chris, but you're more than welcome to answer as well. I'm a student currently at Arizona State University. I'm mastering in food sustainability as well. And recently I was doing an assignment on the NAS, which is the National Statistics on Agriculture. And I was looking in the Santa Clara County, and I was looking how urbanization has been taking over. So I think my concern now is for farmers. What are we doing to really protect their land, and what are we doing? Because over the years, there's been an increase. There's at least 25% of most farmers who don't own the land. So what are we doing to protect them, even though there is acts like the Williamson Act that has been established for 10 years, but what are we doing after, especially for soil protection? Because the co-ops is great, but without our farmers, how can we get there? How can we get through policy? So I think that's my question of what have we been doing in the policy aspect. I love that we're doing a lot of ground truth, but what can we do to really make sure that we have that structure and that solid foundation and our farmers are not left behind?
Great question, and I'll respond a little bit. The truth is, there's probably people in this room, actually I know there's people in this room that have more up-to-date information on this, and so I want to also crowdsource this if anybody from the audience would like to help answer. I mean, I know you're absolutely right. There is a major issue with expanding urbanization, the affordability and the support for farmers in the county and in neighboring counties. It's something that is called out a little bit in the food systems work plan, and it's something that is definitely worthy of further investigation and support, so I'm glad you're looking at it. It's not my particular kind of area I've been focusing on recently, so I want to crowdsource this. If anybody would like to add it, Casey, thank you.
Your name, please.
Hi, my name is Casey Hill. I am your new food systems manager for County of Santa Clara. And I think what I would say here, and there's a lot to say, so I'll also say please reach out to me, and I'm happy to say more. This is where I think it's just so important, we're all here in the room, to think about the intersectionality of food systems work. Because when we think about our farmers, there are a number, I'm going to point to some county initiatives, but there are cross-county, regional, state, and beyond initiatives that are really important to know about. There are everything from working in partnership with our open space organizations, so Green Foothills, Open Space Authority, Mid-Peninsula, Post, Peninsula Open Space Trust. These are all organizations that have come along in their thinking around open space preservation and working lands or natural lands being part of that solution for environmental sustainability. So we're working in partnership. There are initiatives that tie to the SB 1383, Senate Bill 1383, short-lived climate pollutants bill, which are specifically meant to improve soil health, but by incentivizing local farmers to add compost and other, environmentally sustainable tools and techniques to their farming. So financial incentives for farmers to be able to participate in some of what we know are really important environmental practices. And then the last thing that I'll say is a very recent one, and there's a lot of momentum behind it. And I encourage you to, like I said, reach out to me. Also, this is going to be coming up in upcoming Board of Supervisors meetings. Is a support for better, more sustainable conditions for farm workers, living conditions. So housing, farm worker housing is a huge part of this. So these are some examples of, I hope, impartially, addressing that question, but it's very complex. It's a big one. And then I'd like to ask a question since I have the mic, if that's okay. I'm curious to know a little bit more about the anchor client definition, and what do you consider to be an ideal anchor client? What are some of the opportunities and challenges in identifying and securing those anchor clients with cooperative, or not, I don't want to say for, because they'll be doing a lot of that work themselves.
Thank you for that question, Casey. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. The anchor client is totally something that wakes me up at night sometimes. You know, like it is one of the scarier parts of this. But honestly, there's a lot of support that we already have, you know, to get an anchor client. So as we were telling you guys about earlier, Veggielution is a part of a collective of nonprofit organizations in East San Jose called the Si Se Puede Collective. And we've actually been working with them for a little bit just to like try to establish, to see like what needs that they have that could potentially serve this anchor client. I think in terms of ideal anchor client, it would definitely be one that would be patient and understanding to what the cooperative is, what its objectives are, and what stage of growth that it's in, you know? So, I mean, like I was saying, the timeline is within those 3 months, we're gonna teach them how to be great caterers that also know a lot about how to start a cooperative. Once they get selected, there's gonna be 2 months of a lot more serious like development of those skills, like menu development and like getting them comfortable being in the kitchen and like basically cooking in the way that a catering company does. And so once the cooperative launches, ideally at first Saturday of November, you should definitely be there because it'll be cool. Then that co-op will definitely have a very strong foundation and base of knowledge, but they're not just going to be able to jump into like an 800-person contract that next week, you know? And so ideally, it would definitely be maybe with a bigger client like the county or the city or one of our partner organizations that has been in partnership with us to develop that, to develop this program just in general and have them invested in seeing it succeed so as to not, you know, throw us something that's impossible for us and have us fail in the beginning, but more like to have the patience to help us build up over time so we can get to that level. Because I'm sure that the co-op will be able to do that at some point, you know. We just need the support to get there, I would say.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. If we have one more question. I was waiting for that. Your name and your question, please.
Hi, my name is Addison, and I think my question would be, considering that you're focusing this in the East Bay, you know what I mean. What is Veggielution's strategy for reaching out to the community, and what have been the challenges with that? I know that you said you're mostly working with Latinos, so like obviously part of that would be getting people who are part of that community to help you as leaders, but what other strategies have you found to be helpful?
So, strategies for engaging the community in San Jose. I think we have a handful of them. We've been working in the community for a number of years. Like here, our programs grow by referral. Like I am part of the program. I like it so much. I tell my friend Antonio, you should join that program next year. That is how we are getting people in our programs at this point. A big portion of our staff are members of the community. I will say most of our staff are bilingual in English and Spanish. What else? We rely more in like the direct communication and the relationship more than in social media. Not that we don't have a social media. It's very dynamic, but the way to get to our community is more like together, like talking. We have a crazy couple of groups on WhatsApp that if you have WhatsApp, it's like buzzing all day because there are like community members sharing resources, telling like each other like I'm selling this or I'm giving this away, there is this event, and like that keeps it like very real, like very to what they need, and we see that there's a lot of response.
I'll also add time and trust. It's taken a long time for us to be at this point we are now, like 9 years since I've started for sure. And then trust, just trust building with community members, being there for them, showing up for partner agencies, building relationships with partner agencies who are well trusted in the community. But it takes time. It doesn't happen because you post 3 times on social media, right? It's those one-on-one conversations. It's meetings until like 9 a.m. 8 a.m. meetings, it's phone calls when you're driving into work. It takes time. So I don't think there's like a magic equation, but time and trust is what I'll say.
Okay. I can share that Veggielution, what are we sharing here is only one arm of Veggielution. We have multiple arms and legs. And one of our arms, or maybe a leg, I'm not sure, is the work that we are doing through, for example, the Urban Growers Network. No, it's a group of urban growers organization, food access organization, environmental organization, that we gather to start thinking together what we need to think and dream together to improve the food access and equity, food equity access in Santa Clara County. So through these 7 partners in Santa Clara County, we are reaching and communicating and working with those communities. Also, we just start yesterday at 6 p.m., the Resident Advisory Committee. That is a space where residents of Santa Clara County will be providing feedback to the Sustainability Office of Santa Clara County, Public Health, and also the Food System Office. So Santa Clara County is creating a council where residents can have a voice and be heard, and has been a challenge for us to recruit people outside of the Latino community. It's a challenge for us because we have been involved and diving deep so many years. So we need to do an effort and stretch ourselves and broke some barriers that we have to connect with Vietnamese community, with African American community, those who are here and are in need too. So we are doing that effort, but it's a stretch, and we are doing that. What do you think?
I think tamale time. It's 12:50, so it's a little bit after class. So thank for everybody who stayed later.
Chris, let me say this. So you're gonna have the privilege of tasting this food today. Let me share just a little about the food provider. Irvin is the owner of Chicken Tamales. He's an East Side graduate. His business was incubated by Veggielution with the support of the Latino Community Foundation, Santa Clara County. He started as an informal home-based family business, and now he has a catering license, sells in multiple farmers market, and he is providing jobs to other people in the community. So recognize also the successful stories of our community who are here with us and will provide the food that will feed our hearts and brains.
And stick around if you can for till 12:15 or so. All the folks that need to go to class, we understand. If the students could drop your questions in the little envelope that I think Annika has there at the registration table on your way out, that would be terrific. Stick around then for some networking and tamales and champarao, I think, and other food and drink. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.